Hello everyone, welcome to this week's discussion on public history. I previously posted a video on career opportunities available to public historians, in which I list a vast array of careers which they can occupy outside of academia, outside of schools and universities. Public historians can be found in libraries and in historical associations and societies. This is definitely true when it comes to Ohio's German Village Historical Society. Now, Ohio's German Village is definitely a place in which deserves a historical society to protect its historical memory. And this is done so by the collection of oral histories. If you contact the society, you will find people willing to direct you to historical newspapers and even land deeds. German Village was originally platted in 1814. The original lands were part of a land patent granted to a John McGowan in 1802 as part of the 1796 Congressional Act, which relocated lands to refugees from Canada and Nova Scotia because they supported the American Revolution against the British. John McGowan and his heirs all sold vast amounts of land to German immigrants, and they could afford to do so because this land grant, was contained the better of 328 acres. The area, which is known as German Village, really cemented itself in the 1840s, about 20 years after John McGowan's death. These German immigrants that resided there even helped build the first state house in Columbus, and when driving through the area, you can see a good part of the village from the highway. It is important to note, though, that this area would not be in existence if it weren't for the lobbying of public historians in the 1960s, which is when German Village was technically created. It used to be simply known as the Alt South-End, which is German for the Old South End. During the 1920s, the area was actually zoned for industrial development, which would have destroyed private residences. It would be very much like the crisis that many of us would remember as the encroachment of the government on residences for the purposes of public domain. Many people like Charles Kramer and Sue Doughty mention this in their oral histories given to the German Village Historical Society. without these preservationists, many German businesses would have also been destroyed, such as Schmidt's, which is a beloved German restaurant in Columbus. Several different breweries, which the Germans were also famous for, would have been shut down as well. These historians in the 1960s sought to preserve the German heritage in Ohio. Not just in German Village, there was many other cities in which Germans resided, but German Village is one of the most well documented. And in a way, the German experience there reflects a great deal of the American sentiment towards Germans. For instance, Schiller Park, which was obtained and renamed in 1891, is dedicated to a German poet, of which a statue resides in the park, named Friedrich von Schiller, who was an advocate for the democratic process against a government of tyrants. In the 19-teens, this park was actually renamed Washington Park due to the anti-German sentiment rampant throughout the United States because of the First World War. At this time, German communities were experiencing a great amount of persecution due to their native land's position. This is especially emphasized in Charles Kramer's oral interview, which is located on the German Village website. This would not be the first example of anti-German or anti-immigrant attitudes of Americans in Ohio. In fact, in 1855, there was an event known as the Cincinnati Riots, which occurred because the Know Nothing Party's mayoral candidate publicly spoke out against Germans, and a few of his supporters even attempted to prevent German Americans from voting. I believe one newspaper even mentioned a cannon being fired, but I may have misread that. However, there was rioting in the streets of Cincinnati at that time. The Cincinnati riots were pretty localized. However, in Columbus, Germans did experience persecution due to the anti-immigration stance of political parties. These sort of sentiments would reappear periodically due to national sentiment. I believe Schiller Park, which was named for a German poet, was renamed in the 19-teens to Washington Park for Americanization purposes, and then later given the name Schiller Park again to preserve its memory. That being said, with the goal of a public historian ultimately being to preserve historical memory, it is imperative that we give attention to historical societies such as that of German Village.